This is Yogi Chugh, host of the Voice of Indo-Americans, JAHO. We urge everyone to vote on June 7th. It is important that the South Asian community have its voice heard in the presidential primary. We're going to have a record turnout on June 7th, which is the day of the California primary elections. Please make sure to participate and vote for your favorite candidates running for various elected offices. Every U.S. citizen has a right to vote, so please ensure you're registered to vote and participate in this historic election on June 7th. Every vote matters, so please don't forget to vote on June 7th. Welcome to the Voice of Indo-American JAHO. This is your host, Yogi Chugh. My co-host, Dharmendra Devan, is not here this week. He will be joining us in a few weeks going forward as we come back with basically continuing to present to our listeners the Voice of Indo-Americans, JAHO. This is your program, your hour, your dialogue, your discussion. With the upcoming primary election on June 7th, we've been having a lot of discussions about the need for political engagement, the need for being politically mobilized, energized, and the search of our identity and the journey of our immigrant journey being legitimized by having some electoral wins. Joining our studios today is Councilmember Rishi Kumar from the city of Saratoga. Rishi, welcome to our studio.
Yogi, thank you so much for inviting me.
Wonderful. And obviously, this program begins each week with a tribute to the growing influence of the Indian American community. This community has done so remarkably well in California and particularly in Silicon Valley. This community has begun to propel and crystallize itself in a form that I think is the envy and the talk of the town. It is that immigrant journey that we feel that has really come to the cusp in a moment of triumph and tribulations, a moment of great joy and great success. Each week we start our program with a tribute to the growing influence of the Indian American community. Each week we start this program with a tribute to that community through our song, JAHO, from the movie Slumdog Millionaire. We'll be right back with a spirited dialogue and discussion after that segment with Councilmember Rishi Kumar, a friend, a leader that I respect immensely. We'll give him a proper introduction, but we'll be right back after the song, JAHO. American JAHO. This is your host, Yogi Chugh. My co-host, Dharmendra Devan, is not in the studio today, but he'll be joining us in the weeks ahead. Today we're having a discussion about political engagement, political mobilization, political identity. It is a need of the hour. As many of you know, the primary elections for California are going to be happening on June 7th. It is an opportunity for us to come and participate in democracy. As we all know, the democracy is not a spectator sport. Democracy is best served when we're politically engaged. In our studios today, I am so proud to have a friend and somebody who I think personifies this sense of political engagement. A corporate successful career. Now he works for a company where he focuses on energy and technology and conservation and is at the forefront of coming back and disrupting energy and utilities as we know it. That's what he does to raise a family. A father of 2 boys. Married to Seema. He's just a remarkable human being. Got involved very early in politics. Successful in his run for Saratoga. And when he ran for Saratoga City Council, the world said, Rishi, it's impossible for you to win. You're not going to win. He defied all odds. He is somebody I respect because he understands what it means to be involved in a community long before you make a decision to decide to run for office one day. Rishi, welcome to the studio, Voice of Indo-Americans, JAHO, formally.
Thank you, Yogi. Thank you for the kind words.
You know, Rishi, certainly credit where due. Certainly your enthusiasm, your commitment to public service is contagious. But let's talk about this for our listeners. They often see Rishi Kumar, council member of the city of Saratoga. Walk our listeners a little bit through your own journey. How did you get involved in your community? How did you get to a point where people said, Rishi Kumar may happen to be Indian American, but he is the best person to represent the citizens of Saratoga? Walk our listeners through that journey.
So, when I look back, it started with the very simple step of going out there and knocking on a door in my neighborhood. And why did I do that? It was primarily to get a neighborhood Yahoo group, an email group started. It all started with taking that simple step of printing out a flyer and walking around my neighborhood and saying, hey, everyone should be joining this email group because our neighborhood is seemingly disconnected. And to knock on that first door, it was a horrifyingly scary experience for me. How do I knock on that door? Who's going to open the door and what will they tell me? But having taken that first step, it basically took the fear out of going out there, meeting people, talking to people, and more importantly, engaging on my neighborhood issues. I started working with our public works director in ensuring that our roads were paved, fixing up little issues in our neighborhood. And also, when there was a break-in, then I basically launched a neighborhood safety watch, brought the whole neighborhood together, started a neighborhood block party. I mean, that was all essentially addressing a need in our community. And there was nobody else doing it, and I thought maybe I can do it. And that's basically was turned out to be a pretty strong opening, a door opening for me into public service. This is something that I've truly, truly enjoyed.
Rishi, often enough, people come back and say politics is not for me, and politics is something that it's difficult for me to get involved in. But on this program, we've often talked to people and said, politics is our lives. Every single decision we make in our lives is a political decision, whether it's schools, whether it's the potholes, whether it's crime in our neighborhoods. Have you found that as you began to open up this Yahoo group, people began to understand that often enough government can't take care of all your problems, that you have to collectively organize? And when we say organize, it's not in a militant kind of a way, but organizing, saying like-minded people converge, present your ideas to government and hold them accountable. Is that consistent with your own experience?
Yeah, absolutely. When I look at, specifically if I look at even my community of Saratoga, folks work hard, they play hard, they are pretty successful with everything they're doing. And sometimes we are a little bit disconnected with our community, with some of the issues that are ongoing. And sometimes we kind of feel that, well, it's an issue, but everybody else sees that too, and maybe someone else is stepping up. But, I think what we need to do is we need to step up. It's very important for us to step up. And I have a monthly political series in India Post, which is called Satyagraha Souls. And one of the things I write in there is sometimes when there are issues happening, our conscience is pricking. It's basically telling us that, hey, you haven't done what you're supposed to do. And if you have that sinking feeling, I suggest get involved, get engaged, and just do a little bit. It doesn't mean a whole lot. Sometimes it's just knocking on 10 doors and having a dialogue with your neighbors. I mean, that's a starting point. So I highly recommend that to everyone.
Rishi, you talked about something very interesting. You said that our community has become very successful, and undeniably, Silicon Valley's basic crux of success, foundation, if there's a book to be written, the story of the Indian-American journey, the South Asian community, is going to be defined as a strong contributor. Saratoga was not always a community that was heavy in minorities. Indian Americans and Chinese Americans, I would say that the last decade has probably been a phenomena. Now, in the last 10 years, Rishi, as you've seen your own sense of engagement, have you found that there's been a transformation? Do you think that people are beginning to understand the power of engagement? Do you think that now that everybody's had a little bit of comfort, that they're beginning to understand and saying that as immigrants in this country, U.S. citizens, our identity will always be a part of our persona? Do you find that they're now coming back and saying that I need to have a political voice, or do you still think that it's on the fringes and not nearly enough to where it needs to be?
Well, simply stated, Yogi, I still see a lot of apathy, and I'll give you a quick statistical data on that. When I look at Saratoga, the population when I ran for office was about 30,000, and out of which about 10%, we had about 3,000 Indian Americans. And how many did we have who were high propensity voters, which is typically who we target when we are out there campaigning, when Senator Jim Bell, who's running for his re-election campaign, he's got a walking packet, and he's basically targeting voters to get the vote out and help him get a good showing in the primaries, right? Who are we targeting? We are targeting the high propensity voters. And with 145 high propensity voters, out of a population of 3,000, it demonstrates total apathy to me. I think we can do a lot better. And what happens is, in this world of social media, we show up. There are neighborhood parties happening where we invite politicians. We had Hillary Clinton in Saratoga. We had many other locally elected leaders who have had fundraisers there. And our population will show up and they will take pictures, they will post it on social media, they will write campaign checks. But when it comes to voting or even sometimes even registering to vote, we are falling behind. And I think we can do definitely a lot better in that area.
Now, certainly Saratoga has had a disproportionate success with its council members. Susie Nagpal was on city council. You have gotten on city council, and I still remember when that campaign was being run, the political pundits were all stating that the political calculations were going to be difficult. Chinese Americans were going to be able to come back and have an absolute win. Rishi, you did something remarkable. You ran a campaign of the masses, a grassroots campaign, unlike anything that I've seen in any town. And success was yours. Can you share with us what it meant? I know the idea of winning an election is build your base, secure it, and then forge coalitions across the board. Was that successful? Did you find that you found people who believed in that idea and said, Rishi, run hard, we will do whatever it takes? Or did it have to involve a lot of jostling, convincing them, come on, guys, please vote? Or did you think that Saratoga just was different and voting came naturally to them?
So, I think Saratoga, typically we are 10 percentage points higher than Santa Clara County as a whole. So we do vote in large numbers for almost every election. But our Indian American population, I think we can do a lot better there. When I look at, for example, the Chinese American population, they have been very successful in rallying behind candidates. They typically end up picking a candidate of choice, and the whole community rallies behind them with a huge force of showing. And I don't quite observe that in the Indian American population, because when I was running, all sorts of rumors started flying, and you are basically been talked about, you have been analyzed, and for all the right reasons, because you want to pick the right candidates. That is very important. But, what happens is the rumors start flying and allegations start popping up, and that is not very healthy. I think we need to basically ensure that we are not only making the right choices, but taking the rumor mongers out of the picture, and we are basically, to some extent, rallying behind our candidate to ensure that they win. Because how many of Indian Americans are really running for office? Very few of them. And when we start targeting folks who are even trying to stick their neck out, it's not very healthy. So that's one recommendation. But when I look at the population of Saratoga as a whole, my involvement was historically, in my neighborhood, I had the strongest of support, obviously, because of all the stuff that I had done. I was also involved with the Chamber of Commerce. I was also involved with the Saratoga Senior Center. But, there is a huge amount of reservation when it comes to us taking a seat on the table. Are we really entitled for that seat on the table? We are perceived still as outsiders. What have we really contributed? Many of the times, the question they would ask me was, how many years have you lived in Saratoga? And they would probably not ask a different type of voter persona that shows up at the door, but I was being asked that question. And I think for all the right reasons, because folks are analyzing my candidacy and trying to see if this guy really belongs. Does he deserve to have a seat on the council? Now, when I look at all the amount of work that I had done, in fact, there was a quote from one of the council members. He basically said there were 5 of us running on that council race, including one incumbent. And his take was, Rishi has done more for more people in Saratoga than anyone else running in the city council race. But, folks did not look at it that way, because when I announced my candidacy, there were a lot of folks who had worked within the past. They basically looked away. And that's the challenge we have, because we have to, if let's say you have a Caucasian candidate, they run so hard, you have to probably run 10 times more harder. And that's really what we had to do to win this race.
Something that caught my attention, Rishi, you said the Chamber of Commerce. You said the Senior Center. A sporadic number of cultural activities around Saratoga. That's against the grail. That thing doesn't come naturally to most of our South Asian community. School involvement I can see, because education is a premium, and I can see a sense of involvement. But Rishi, that involvement in its formative years, was it just a desire to participate, become a part of the Saratoga DNA? Or was it a larger context of the fact that somebody had to do it and you felt that it was important for you to get to know people in Saratoga such that you could impart that knowledge, the understanding, and make a more organized community? Was that the essence of your own activism?
Sure. And, when I look at myself being on the council, if I go back, like even 2014 was when I won my council seat. If I go back like 2011, there was absolutely no desire to be in the world of politics. And when someone said, hey, look at the planning, I spent a few years on the planning commission, and there was a pull to have me back on the planning commission, and someone else reached out, an Indian American from Saratoga, and said, Rishi, I've been told that you are interested to be in the planning commission, but I'm interested too. I said, definitely so. Please, I have no interest in politics. I know there is an aspiration that you have. I will step aside, and that's really what I ended up doing. So when I look at all my engagement, it was about doing the right thing in the community, simply stated, and for example, so let me give you an example of this. The senior center involvement came about because I was on the soccer board, and one of my good friends, Mark Chapin, he was the president of our senior center. And I was running this open mic in downtown Saratoga. It was, we called it Saratoga's Got Talent, where folks would show up and just perform, have a good time, intermingling, interaction. So people will look at that as a fun event. But the reason we were doing that, because our downtown businesses were hurting. Nobody was really showing up, and the businesses were shutting down. I said, hey, we need to bring our larger community and have them understand what goes on in downtown. So let's create something fun. So we started with that purpose. And that, when Mark Chapin approached me that the senior center was hurting, I said, okay, let's take this and turn it into a talent competition and raise some money for the senior center. So the thing is, as long as our heart is in the right place, we will end up making the right choices for our community, and doors start opening for us in terms of our engagement. I was pulled into the Chamber of Commerce because social media is something I sort of understand, and basically they pulled me in and to help define the strategy for social media for the chamber, and I started getting involved in their Wednesday farmers market and a few other areas. So the thing is, there is a lot of help that is needed in every community, and it's a question of us finding the time. I think that is the most important thing, finding the time and the energy to get involved, and then basically it becomes a little bit of a roadmap in terms of pointing us, steering us in the right direction.
Rishi, certainly, my own involvement in politics, going back a number of years, getting people involved, culturally, religion, arts, crafts, Ras Garba, relatively easy. It's their comfort zone. It's within the larger context of an extended family or groups of people on religion, region, sometimes language. But for some odd reason, when it comes to politics, even today, I find that people will come back and say, Yogi, politics, I don't know, it's not for me. It turns me off. I don't have time. My life is focused on my children. I don't know, Yogi, how you find time. And frankly, they'll tell me, God bless you, Yogi, I don't know how you do it, but I just don't have the time. And then all of a sudden you're convincing them, hey guys, there's an election on June 7th. Can you vote? And often enough, good intention, they'll say, I thought the election was in November. And I'm saying, well, there's an election in November as well, but this is important. But Rishi, coming back to this, and now I want to talk a little bit about the present. You're in City Council in Saratoga, and certainly that responsibility is one where you have to be a council member that represents all of Saratoga's interests. But often enough in our own community, people will come back and say, Rishi, as Indian Americans, we have to do this. Do you find that sometimes that's problematic because you're being held back in the context of Indian American issues, when an expectation of a council member when you took that oath was you have to represent the interest of all Saratogians? Absolutely. And how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So, I think us representing, a community, right? Like I'm representing Saratoga, and people come to me with all sorts of issues and challenges. And we have to go through the due diligence in providing everyone support. So my take is, if somebody calls me, I better call them right back or reply to their email. That is very important to me. and also trying to see how best I can support. There are lots of things that come our way, once we are on that seat. And it's the opportunity. When I look at myself as a city council member, I have a platform, and that platform is to basically help, be of service as best as I can. And my outreach gets out there in the community. But with that, what I keep hearing is all the different issues and challenges, not only from a Saratoga perspective, but also from Silicon Valley. Sometimes folks have startup that they're launching. They reach out and say, I want to talk to you. And my take is support and help everybody as best as possible. That's how I like to approach it. From an Indian American community, obviously that's my base. That's my base in Saratoga, even though the population is 10%. And I have to absolutely make the right choices from considering that, I'm an Indian American and I'm an American, but I'm also an Indian American. Make the right choices also for our community. And the one question that our Indian American population asks me most often in Saratoga is, where do you find the time and where do you find the energy to do all this? And that's how they approach this, because there is so much stuff that we do in the community. We run this Sunday free classes for our community that includes Silicon Valley Robotics Club. We run a Coders Club, a debate academy, meditation, yoga, Bollywood fitness, pranic healing. There is so many different variety of roles that we have created, opportunities of learning for our community, not only for our seniors, not only for our kids, but also for the regular Saratoga population. Like the yoga we run, it's run by an Indian senior, but folks who show up are Caucasians, Asians, they're all enjoying the offering. And that's how we have to do it, be very inclusive and engage the whole community.
Wonderful, Rishi. We're going to come back and take a quick song break. And when we come back, we're going to continue our dialogue with Councilmember Rishi Kumar from the city of Saratoga. We'll talk about political engagement, political mobilization, the need to vote, and the need to become a politically active community. We'll be right back after the song. Enjoy the song and our discussion.
like that, you have to rinse it.
To the voice of Indo-American Jaho. This is your host, Yogi Chugh. We're going to be back again now with our dialogue with Councilmember Rishi Kumar. Rishi, we've been having this dialogue about the need for a political voice, mobilization, organizing, getting the Indian American vote, the South Asian vote, to the polls. June 7th is our primary election, an opportunity for candidates to make their case before our voters. Obviously, the presidential election is huge. Certainly, Trump is the presumptive nominee for the Republican Party. But for the Democrats, we still have Bernie and we still have Hillary Rodham Clinton coming about that. So that's going to be phenomenal. Rishi, for some of our listeners who may or may not have known that, it's unprecedented that in the stump for a presidential candidate, that you were one of the elected officials that came in and spoke to the supporters that came in who'd felt the burn for Bernie Sanders. That was a defining moment. You stood on a national stage. The world was watching. And that was a moment where I think, coming back in the 30 years, I felt for a moment that as a community we'd arrived. Do you feel that that was a testament to the growing influence of the Indian American community, the South Asian community, that they felt that a council member of Indian origin, a Saratogan, would be something that the Bernie campaign felt important enough to give a platform to?
Well, I sort of agree on that. I think we still need to make a lot of strides ahead, but it was a huge testament to the success of our community. I think when you look at Silicon Valley, a huge portion of the success of the Valley and the technology we are launching for the whole world, it comes about because of us, our Indian American community, that are involved not only in leadership areas as CEOs, as founders, but also as engineers who are actually writing up the code for all the stuff that we use on Facebook every single day for our Google search engine. There are folks working behind the scene, and we are actually contributing to the prosperity of this region with our goodwill, essentially. All of us, we are fairly grounded in terms of the traditions and the cultures and all the learning that we had back home in India. And, there is no ill will. We are here representing as best as we can to ensure the success of America. And it starts with local. So we are all doing the right things in Silicon Valley and helping out the startups, helping out creating new technology, new ideas. And it was more a testament of that. And, have I done enough to merit that? Not quite. I was surprised when I was put on stage before Bernie. But, I think it was more a testament for the amazing contribution of our Indian American community, of Dr. Japra, of Yogi Chugh, who have been there as political activists representing our community, and that was a testament of that more than.
Well, Rishi, thank you. And there's many, many other people that have done a lot of work. And now I want to talk to you a little bit about the local landscape, as they say that all politics is local. So certainly Bernie's presidential campaign in Silicon Valley, it was remarkable to see you there. And for a moment, watching you on that made me feel good and said that 30 years of community engagement, we're finally at a point where this community is perceived and recognized in the manner that it should. But local, city of Fremont, San Jose, Cupertino, Newark, Union City, Campbell, San Jose, you name it, Cupertino, Sunnyvale, Santa Clara. One would think that government should represent the demographics. It should look and feel like our communities and our neighborhoods. One, city councils and other governmental offices where elected officials participate doesn't look like our local communities in some instances. We've had some wins, we've lost a few, and we don't have a deep bench. What are your observations about that, Rishi? And I know that it's election time, so we'll talk a little bit more about the need of the hour. But what is going on from your perspective? Why are we unable to hold on to some of the seats that we won before?
Sure. And, when I look at, let's look at Saratoga, it started with obviously Susie Nagpal, who is Jai Shivlal's sister. And when she launched her campaign, we probably didn't have a chance. But she was a charismatic candidate, and unfortunately, she had a very short stint in office. But she basically had somebody, and she had mentored me, yeah, and she had mentored me into a role. And if she was on the council today, I would probably never ever have run for office. But she basically had mentored me enough that it became my calling also. And that's what we need to do as Indian American leaders. We need to ensure that we are creating somebody who can carry the torch, the flagship. And when I look at the Chinese American community, there is a huge desire in them to ensure that that happens. Now, let's look at San Jose. We have Councilmember Raj Kalra running he's on District 2 for the last almost 8 years now. He's running for assembly. That District 2 is going to be open and vacant. And should we have had an Indian American candidate running there? And today it's not. It's basically an open seat, and there are a lot of folks who are fighting a pretty good campaign to replace Ash. And I feel, if we could have had an Indian American candidate run there, that would be phenomenal. That would have been superb. And for no fault of Ash, because he has mentored a lot of people in the community. He's been there representing us as best as he can. He's like Superman who shows up at like 10 different events through the day. But at the end of the day, we have struggled because that political engagement and activism is sometimes missing. And we need to ensure how can we do that. It's challenging. It's still a little bit challenging, and that's why I said we need to make a lot of strides. When I look at Anu Natarajan, she was a phenomenal leader that Fremont had. She ran for mayor, and her contribution was very, very good in the city of Fremont. And Raj Salwan, he basically took over from Anu Natarajan. He was appointed into the role. And unfortunately, 2 years later, he didn't make it. So he should be running again. And when he wins this time in November, he should also ensure that there is somebody out there to be carrying that flagship when Raj is no longer there. And which also means that all of us have to rally behind a candidate. In Fremont, what I would love to see is the whole community as a whole, not just the Indian American community, but folks who have supported Anu to be out there ensuring that they are also supporting Raj, because he is a great candidate. He's done a good amount of work in his 2 years on the city council, and we need to put our collective energy and thoughts behind Raj.
Well, that's an interesting question that you mentioned. And all of a sudden, when you look at some of these candidates, you look back at the fact that they struggle to raise money. They struggle to get people who will come and walk precincts for them. All of a sudden, there's a saying in politics that money is the mother's milk of politics. And in the absence of that, you need to have a successful ground game. And we're lacking that deficiency. When you look at congressional races, and you're looking at a race, all of a sudden it's gained a notoriety. And all of a sudden it's the campaign that most newspapers are talking about. But clearly, is that message about the growing influence of a community? Or is it a growing story about a candidate who just doesn't want to give up? And clearly what happens is that I think one of the struggles is we have to focus on the aspirations of an Indian American community. And candidates will show up at all events, but when you ask them to show up for a precinct walk, sometimes it's difficult to get anybody there. Where's that disconnect? Is that dichotomy one of the biggest challenges of our community? That politics doesn't come naturally to them, and it's a win, and they think that a candidate's a good person, he's a nice guy, you give him a stage, you welcome him, you say nice words about him, and think that they're going to automatically win just because they're nice people?
I see, Yogi, there is a little bit of a mental block. When I go back and when I took that first step of knocking on the door, I had a huge mental block and I got over it. And that's what I observe with our community as well. At a school board meeting, there is a significant issue. I'm still an activist. When I see something in the community that is broken, I have a huge desire to fix that. And I will show up at school board meetings and I will take the mic and I will express my voice. And there are folks from our community who are sitting in the room and they are not so willing to express their voice because, at the end of the day, there's something holding them back. So it's important to take the first step and go out there and do just a little bit more. And, when it comes to campaigning, precinct walking, knocking on doors, it's hard stuff, and and that sense of urgency has to also be created for us. For example, when I ran for a delegate position in the California Democratic Party, when I was out there campaigning, someone told me that, Rishi, why are you campaigning? It's politics is a very dangerous game. You could be shot. But, I think that's the mindset we have. This is not India anymore. This is America. And it's so much more different over here. And we need to reconcile and understand that. And once we understand that, we will get involved. We will get involved and we'll get engaged. And that will be the difference that our community needs to see and observe. Because it's a question of, we currently have Ro Khanna, who's running for Congress. And, he ran 2 years ago. And he came so very close to beating an incumbent, Mike Honda, who's been there forever in Silicon Valley. And now he's running an amazing campaign once again. The elections, June 7th is the primary election for Roe, and we expect and hope to have him in the top two for sure. And then the November elections will hopefully have a new congressman. How many folks do we have in Congress today? We just have one. When I look back, 2012, we had 14 candidates who were running for the Congress, Indian-Americans across the country, and we had only one, Ami Bera, who made it past and who won. So there is a lot more stuff that needs to be done.
Well, Rishi, thank you so much. It's been a great dialogue, great discussion. Thank you for making your time. I know that you have many other events to go to today, and we were fortunate to be able to get your opportunity and presence here today. Thank you so much. I know you have another community event to run to, but before you go, the greatest tribute we can give to any of our guests on this program is our customary Jaho. It's the one that Dharminder and I give to all of our guests. We give you a big Jaho for your commitment. We give a Jaho for your hopes and your aspirations. We give a Jaho for your political strength, your political growth, and along that, the ability to uplift a community of people and to build a deep bench of people who will dare to dream and become the margin of victory. Your closing thoughts and closing comments about anything that we may not have been able to ask you, but you want the listeners of the Voice of Indo-Americans, Jaho, to hear before you leave. And certainly, as you know, June 7th, the primary, if you could make a pitch for that as well.
Yep, sure, happy to. So the one final thought I have is, all of us, we are very good local citizens. We are contributing to it in huge ways, as businessmen, as lawyers, as technologists, as teachers, as, been out there in Sacramento and governmental bodies. We are all doing our little work there. But, simply stated, the carpet can be pulled from under our feet very, very quickly, us as a community. And it's important for us to have political leadership in place and for us to have that ability to go out and have our voices be heard. So now when you look at, 145 high propensity voters in Saratoga out of a population of 3,000, when you have a campaign being organized, nobody comes knocking at our Indian American doors. They're not really hearing our voice. They're looking at us for fundraising, that's good, but they don't really hear our voice. And that voice needs to be heard. And it happens because we exercise our vote. That is extremely important. We should also register to vote. It's a good story. Where after I won my city council race, I was having meeting a bunch of folks at a party, and someone said, "Hey, congratulations!" And then my first question was, "Did you happen to vote?" And the question was no. And then I said, "Okay, how come?" And the response was, "Because I do not want to be invited to jury duty." And that was an educational moment for me, that this is the reason why our community does not vote. So I tried to explain to them as much as possible how the system works and why they need to vote. But those are the kind of inhibitors for our community. We need to engage. We need to understand the process. Sometimes we don't even understand the process. And that's something that I really try to do as much as possible. I would like to say that in the June 7th primary, there are some very, very fabulous candidates running. In fact, I was just campaigning for Ash Kalra, who's running for Assembly District 2027. along with Helen Chapman, who's running for San Jose Councilmember District 6. It was the same, there was an overlap, and I was campaigning for them today. My afternoon was dedicated to them. And they are phenomenal candidates. Ash Kalra, he's been 8 years on the council, has done some phenomenal work, 97% attendance record. And he is out there, like I said, representing our community. And also Ro Khanna, Ro Khanna, he lost by only 4,500 votes. And this guy, he's intelligent, he's articulate, he will be out there championing our community. So please do consider supporting our such candidates.
Well, Rishi, thank you so much. Appreciate that. And I know you got a busy schedule ahead, but that was Rishi Kumar, council member, the city of Saratoga. Thank you very much. He's been a guest on this program before. Hopefully we'll get him on the air as well. And once again, best of luck. Thank you so much. And we'll continue with this. We have another speaker we're going to bring on in the air in just a few moments, right after these promo breaks. This is Yogi Chugh, host of the Voice of Indo-Americans, JAHO. We urge everyone to vote on June 7th. It is important that the South Asian community have its voice heard in the presidential primary. We're going to have a record turnout on June 7th, which is the day of the California primary elections. Please make sure to participate and vote for your favorite candidates running for various elected offices. Every U.S. citizen has a right to vote, so please ensure you're registered to vote and participate in this historic election on June 7th. Every vote matters, so please don't forget to vote on June 7th.
If you can't see properly, are suffering from eye strain, need an eye exam, glasses, contact lenses, or sunglasses, then you need to visit Dr. Monica Chugh at Gateway Eye Care, located in the Rayleigh Shopping Center in Fremont. Dr. Monica Chugh sees patients of all ages. All major insurance is accepted. Give yourself and your loved ones a gift of vision. Call 510-791-8300. That's 510-791-8300.
Nurture Kids, preschool, after school, and extended care. The one-stop shop for your child's academic needs, which includes homework help, academic enrichment, public speaking, yoga, chess, theater, creative writing, math Olympiad, art, Bollywood dance, and lots more. They are in true sense innovation in education. Some of the programs run as low as $300 per month. Locations in Fremont Hub, Newark, Fremont Palm Springs, Pleasanton, and the preschool in Central Fremont. Visit them at wenurturekids.com or contact at 510-364-9322.
Welcome to the Voice of Indo-American, JAHO. This is your host, Yogi Chugh. We had a spirited dialogue with Rishi Kumar, council member from the city of Saratoga, about a community identity, his own political story, and the engagement and the need of the hour to get involved in the political process, to vote on the June 7th primary. Joining us now is a dear friend and a community leader, Mr. Mahesh Pakala. Mahesh, welcome to the Voice of Indo-Americans, JAHO. Mahesh, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Yogi.
Well, we've been having a discussion on this program today, Mahesh, and obviously, as many of our listeners know, Mahesh Pakala is a technology leader in Silicon Valley, has had leadership roles all across the spectrum, but his calling has been community service and political engagement and political activism. Mahesh, I welcome you to this program, and I give you a salute for all the work that you're doing in our community to ensure that we have a political voice.
Thank you, Mr. Yogi. And just to be sure, Yogi, you yourself have done so much of community work for the last 25 to 30 years. Nothing to parallel that. And thanks again for having me on your show.
Wonderful. Mahesh, we were just talking to Rishi Kumar, and the thing is, with the June 7th primary, the need of the hour. And in this segment, as we wrap this up, we always want to emphasize a call to action. And that call to action is on June 7th to ensure that we have a record turnout, to ensure that the Indian American community, the South Asian community, votes in very large numbers. You're a person who's very involved in political engagement, political activism, and helping get the community to understand the need to vote. For this June 7th primary election, what has been your own observation?
So, Yogi, what, as you know, we have been working for mobilizing the Indian American community for the last few years. The last election itself was a good turnout, and that is very important for the community in general, because, Indian Americans have been successful in the technology space, in the health space, and many other spaces, but except in this political activism. activities and
The activism.
social work.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so what we need, and need of the hour, like you said, is we want the Indian Americans to go out and vote on June 7th, or if they have an absentee ballot vote, they need to mail it by May 27th. And they should remember that when they cast their vote, it's their voice, and it's their voice for the second generation kids that they have, and they need support. It's not for themselves only, it's for the kids' future, kids' education, kids' safety, and whatever it takes for the second to build a stronger America. They need to get the right leaders in. And who else is more well qualified than the Indian Americans who are standing for elections, like Rishi Kumar? We have Roe, we have Raj Salwan, and many other Indian Americans who are so well qualified, who have been in business, who have been in education, and understand what it takes to rebuild a strong America. It's not about just politics, but it's the basis of how they were brought up when they were kids.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we Indian Americans should go out, vote, and get the right qualified candidate on the right seat,
Wonderful. Now, Mahesh, that's a very good point that you mentioned, that we need to go vote for candidates because, in a way, this is our legacy, right? It's the immigrant journey and ensuring that politics has the best and the brightest, and for those who are very qualified candidates, that we need to come back and vote in record numbers. One, because I think that it is a responsibility of every U.S. citizen that we need to take the right to vote seriously. And we need to vote for that. Now, let me ask you a question, Mahesh. I know you've been working very hard for a number of candidates to get their vote out and the margin of victory. But for the benefit of our listeners, can you share with us just some high-level numbers? We have Indian Americans who are a very large concentration of voters in pretty much every major city in Silicon Valley. If these numbers all came out to vote, you mentioned a little bit, and Rishi mentioned the fact that in the last congressional election, Roe only lost by 4,500 votes. So technically, if he had received 2,500 votes more, or 2,500 people had come out to vote more, it could have defined the outcome of the election. Is that a true statement?
Absolutely. That's the true statement, and that is what was hurting, because we knew a lot of people, Indian Americans, who did not go to vote. They did not go to vote because they had some other meeting engagement on Tuesday or some other stuff that came up. But this time we are requesting them that it's not about themselves, it's about for the future of the kids. They need to make time and go to vote on June 7th, whatever it takes. They are redefining the history of America by getting the right candidate for the Silicon Valley elected. So they need to go out.
Wonderful, Mahesh. Now, this is we just have less than 2 minutes left, but I want to share with you, I had received an email from you and some of the other people, and you had mentioned that the absentee voter submission was much lower than some of the other communities. Can you explain a little bit more so our listeners understand? Obviously, some can vote absentee, and if you're not registered, you'll have to go vote. If you're not absentee, you can go vote on June 7th. But the importance is to make sure that if you have an absentee ballot, to vote for your favorite candidates and to turn that in right away, right? Both in Santa Clara County and if you live in Alameda County, to mail it to your registrar of voters, right? Can you share with them, because we've got just 1 minute, and I want to make sure we can get some very critical messages about the need to vote, how to vote, and if you don't have absentee ballots, you can still vote on June 7th, right?
Correct. So all the Santa Clara County residents, there are no stamps required. It's a free post-paid envelope. Please go and mail the envelopes, the ballots, or you can hand deliver it in any of the libraries or any of the city council offices, number one. Number two, for Fremont and Newark residents, you have to affix one stamp, or you can put 2 stamps to be sure, and you can hand deliver it, or you can mail it before the 27th, or you can hand deliver it to the city council office or to the library. That's the second point. And the third thing is, as you rightly said, Joe, Yogi, the Vietnamese community has really gone out big time and have been started voting. While in the Indian American community, we have noticed that maybe just 5% to 6% of people have turned in their absentee ballots. So we are really urging the Indian American community to go out and mail the ballots as soon as possible, because we do not want any reason for it to be delayed by the mail service or whatever it takes to be discarded as not a valid vote. So please vote, please mail in your absentee ballots as soon as possible.
Mahesh, you and Reena have been working very, very hard on behalf of many of the candidates to ensure that we have a massive turnout. So in this program, I give you another thing we do on this program, which is to give our tribute to you, a jaho, for the work you're doing. I know that this is selfless, it's thankless, but and once again, thank you for making your mantra get out the vote to get the Indian American community to vote in large numbers. So thank you so much, Mahesh. I know you still got the rest of the afternoon, but today, Mahesh, I want you to join me in reminding our voters, and we have 15 seconds to do this, but vote as if your life depends on it. Democracy is not a spectator sport. It is best served when we go vote. Please join me, please join Mahesh, and please join Reena and many other people who believe that politics is important. This is the greatest country in the world. God bless America. God bless America. And we'll join you next week again on the Voice of Indo-Americans. Jaho.
You're listening to Daisy 1170 AM. If you'd like to have your own show, call us today at 408-440-0851. That's 408-440-0851. Or visit us at